So for us, this is about the heritage category. I think that this is as traditional as it gets when advertising awards or creative awards are concerned. The heritage category is about honoring timeless and impactful traditional media work. So we're looking at your traditional work, but there's this phrase that Pitcher used to describe it, says that it recognizes excellence in the foundational elements of marketing communications. And I think that's a very big part of understanding what the heritage category is about, because you have other categories like craft, which I know sometimes people think about what the difference is and do I enter craft or do I enter heritage? And I think that sometimes even the word heritage makes people feel like, oh, then it's about the old stuff. But the truth of the matter is, I think heritage categories are the heart of everything. It's where everything starts from. And all the traditional executions that we would know where marketing communications are concerned does fall under heritage category. So I'll run through quickly the subcategories of heritage, which basically are very important to understand in terms of what gets entered into the heritage category. So on the audio end, the key thing to remember is about the fact that you're looking at excellence in audio work, but then specifically not more than 180 seconds. It's a 3-minute long thing. But here we are looking at the creative value, the creative quality of the work you're doing. We're also looking for sort of an approach to storytelling from an audio perspective. So creativity is the currency here. We come also to design as another subcategory. We look at exceptional work that contributes to the visual and functional success of traditional campaigns. What is very cool about this design category is it allows for a very broad range of entries to come through, from brand identity, packaging, poster work. It's really not just about what a poster looks like, but also in terms of looking at other ways we express communication from a design point. Now, film will be the most traditional of it all, where we're looking at storytelling in short form films. I think that most of the other categories all have some element some subcategory where you can enter a film. But I think here, the film subcategory is about focusing on that art of storytelling, the creativity that has been applied into bringing up this really creative idea. And when we talk about creativity, we're talking about something that is authentic, but something that is also useful. It tells a story well. Now, coming to integrated campaign subcategory, you take all these different elements, film, design, all these different ones. And when you have at least 3 of them in one campaign, they are eligible to be entered in as a integrated campaign. So we're looking at how that integration helps tell a better story, creating some level of synergy as well. And I think that there's a certain level of consistency in the brand narrative across those different platforms or formats that allows your story to be even stronger. I think in the past, we've seen entries that are less than 3, but also still entered in as integrated campaigns, and that doesn't always quite do the trick. When it comes to outdoor, there are a number of outdoor subcategories. The first one will be on ambient and installations. So for these ones, we are actually looking at the showcasing of innovative ambient and media installations that are outdoor, and they have an impactful message. So we're looking at sculptures, objects of placement. So these are things that are physical placements in the outdoor space. Then we have the outdoor billboards and posters. So these are now the comms that are actually used outdoor, but they are not actually installations. So this is where the creative on a billboard, the creative of a poster comes into focus. So this whole thing about the difference between ambient and billboard. So when we're looking at the heritage category, the outdoor subcategories are pretty distinct, even though they all start with outdoor. You have to be very clear on, is it ambient, is it billboard and posters, or is it activations? Now, activations are about creating these creative and engaging outdoor activations that are, they capture public attention, they are memorable. They are memorable brand experiences. So these are experientials. These are events. These are live activations. These are things created to bring a brand experience to life. So we look at things like scale, but also the experience. What did the experience bring to your consumers, to your audience, to your community? Then print, also another very traditional side of things. We're looking at the impact and creativity of print advertising under this subcategory. Of course, execution should be great, but of prime importance here is that creativity level and what you've done from a creative standpoint in terms of the idea behind that work you've done, and then how that idea has been formulated into a concept, into a design work, into a print ad that stands out. So that's a very quick run through the subcategories of this heritage category. So I think heritage allows a lot of agencies to look at the different places in which their strong work can live. And there's also that integrated part where even if the individual pieces of a campaign may not be as strong as their own, if you feel like that campaign gets its strength from integration, then the integrated campaign subcategory is what it is for you. Even though in the past we've noticed that typically agencies make entries into several different subcategories and then compile all those entries into the integrated. So let's take a quick look at what works. I think that I've been on a picture jury quite a number of times. We've worked with a lot of really experienced creatives across Africa. So it's very difficult to discount what creativity means and what creativity should mean. And I think we've always kind of held a very honest boundary where we tell ourselves that we are basically setting the standard of creativity, what creativity means for Africa. And so it's not about being lenient or being nice to each other, because again, we're judging anonymously. We don't know which agency did which work, but the focus is in how creative is this work? Is this work creative? Is this work able to, or is it as effective as I said it was? But ultimately, has this level of creativity been able to transfer that is compelling and that is memorable and able to show a certain level of creative excellence for the creators and for the brand? So we're going to show a few examples of what we think were past strong entries. And Adebayo, you could feel free to jump in at any point. I think we've discussed these things a few times. So
yeah, sure.
One of the really, really cool entries we had, I think this year, was in the design category. It won a gold, which is a typeface for Workable. And what I think made it really good, essentially, Workable is a workspace, right? A shared workspace that people pay to use. But they stand on this unique difference that they create different spaces for different kinds of people. So there's a floor or a room that is mainly curated and designed for the entrepreneur kind of worker. There are places that are curated for like bigger teams, places curated. So depending on what kind of work you do, they give you a particular workspace that has been designed, arranged, shaped, molded for what you do. So these guys did such a great job of translating that differentiation of the brand into a typeface for the visual identity of the brand. So they took the blueprints of these floors in the workspace building and looked for forms and tried to fit forms around them to create alphabets, to create a font for their identity, which is very cool. So when you look at what is making this a gold, there's definitely a strong creative idea. They've taken what is unique, the differentiator of the brand that they are working for, and they've tried to translate it into a visual representation, which was very good. So there's a design and story synergy happening. A very important part about entries with picture is, and generally any kind of global award as well, your case film is always going to be important. The case film brought a bit more context to this story. And even more important in this particular situation of design is the case image, which is what you see enlarged here, showing us how you came up about it, showing us the progression of the design development, and then showing what it looks like, how it's applied, showing it's being activated makes a very big difference. But also, most importantly, we also look at things like how organized your presentation was, and even in terms of the case image, how clearly has it been presented? It looks good, and it also is able to tell a very simple story very quickly. It's even in the entry, in terms of the description, you find that it's brief, but then it was detailed enough to tell us the story. Most judges are busy. We're trying to do this judging work in the middle of our, wild days. And as much as we try to be very focused and, fair in reviewing entries that say too much and yet still don't give enough context, only hurt themselves. And I think that at some point we need to get to that point where we're very succinct, but we are also direct to the point, because it is what it is. The work is already done. The thing about crafting an entry, you are not now doing the design work or the creative. It's done. You are crafting the story about how you did it and why it deserves an award, essentially. Adebayo, did you want to add anything to this particular one?
No, it's fine.
Okay, cool. All right. Another example of what works. In film, this film got a gold. Essentially, what we discussed about this was interesting, because this TV or this film wasn't necessarily one of those ones with an idea that was so out of this world. But there was a really strong balance between strong idea, but also well executed. The way the idea was executed elevated the general, value of the idea. So malaria having now been, identified to affect children a lot more as well. The question was, why hadn't children, become the voices of it? And so preparing for the COP event, they decided to create this, film, which featured the malaria ambassador, but also the youth ambassador for malaria. And they situated them in a library, and they were reading books. But the books were essentially the stories of children dealing with malaria, the stories of children asking world leaders to help them eradicate malaria. You could follow that link there, but when you watch the film, what it does is it takes an idea, an otherwise regular idea, and how it is told elevates it in a certain way. Of course, the addition of such a world-class celebrity like David Beckham, does a lot to it. But it kind of made a typical, help us fight malaria conversation much more interesting to see. I think eventually they got about 500,000 link clicks of this video on YouTube. The thing is, we kind of already expect something from Africa, right? We're talking about malaria, so let's put the sick kid stuck in the front of the camera, let them plead with world leaders to help them. But this took a different approach. It also, sort of wove storytelling into the storytelling, which was really cool. So for us as judges, the fact that that happened, and even the way the case was presented, it really boosted them up in terms of film. Now for outdoor ambient and installations, I think Mattel came up yesterday in one of the cases as well. The really cool thing about ambient installation is that ambient installations have different things we look at. Of course, we're starting from that level of creativity, right? How creative was this? Because it's not really just about throwing a box in town with the logo of your client. The question is, what does the brand represent? How has that been translated into an ambient experience? And then looking at the ambient experience, what is the scale? What is the impact? And how is it sort of pushing out the brand's outlook? Now, the Mattel Tower was a very interesting entry for the year, because Mattel was essentially a brand that stands on business when it comes to boldness, when it comes to being out there, making a statement without using words is how they described it. And so they built this 4-story installation, which essentially was 4 different floors of 4 different experiences. And looking at what they put together to put it together, the team, the collaboration, they're using steel, they're using glass, they're using LED lights, and then there are immersive experiences that they've created. So there's the use of tech as well. The scale of it is impressive. It definitely blows everything else out of the water when it comes to ambient installations, because the scale of it inched it ahead of many other installations that anybody would think of. You can't miss it. And I think that was one of the cool things we had. It was probably one of the most relevant when we talk about ambient and installations of this 2025 picture entries. Unfortunately, the only downside is the case image. Though they presented a case image, the case image wasn't too well designed. You could tell there was either a last-minute attempt at doing it, or, but luckily the description within the entry said everything it had to say. It was detailed enough for us to take that decision for them to win the gold. Another great one, which I've seen in other case studies today and even yesterday, is this one, stitched with cheer. This was a very good one by Tusker. I think that what made it very important to note is that while it was entered in outdoor, it was entered in a very important part of outdoor, which was the activation one, because probably as an outdoor event, it may not have resonated, or outdoor as an outdoor creative poster, billboard, it may not have resonated. But this is where Tusker have dressed the Paralympic team. They've given them this really cool kits that have been fitted with LED lighting that read message. You can read messages off of. Now, the really cool part, and where creativity and tech intersect, is that in order to improve the support for Paralympians from their country, from Kenya, they were able to create a USSD platform that allowed everyday Kenyans to send goodwill messages to the Paralympic team. They counted about 4,000 messages sent during the period. It improved earned media for the Paralympic team. It also allowed fans to directly connect. And one of their Paralympians actually won a silver, crediting, part of his drive to the encouragement and support he was getting from back home. So you look at the strong creative idea, you look at how disruptive this idea was, you also look at their use of tech, you look at the impact. These things make a winning outdoor activation type of entry. I think also the case image, as you can see, is pretty illustrative. It gives all the details, and it's very well organized too as an entry. And I think that the case film did a good job in also telling the story very succinctly. So that's another good entry that we saw. So based on these few ones, I think we can also just highlight a few pitfalls as well. I think that a lot of what has been shared today, I tried to join in earlier and listen to a few other presentations as well, really well crafted by the past jury members. And I think we kind of all will agree on some very common pitfalls that we're seeing, I guess, across most categories. And one of the very big ones within the heritage one is a strong work but wrong subcategory, because someone may have a really, really good film, but when we watch the film, what makes it good is how it was shot. It is the sound engineering that is going on, all these things. So that belonged in craft. It didn't belong in heritage, because we like, this idea is not really that great. Why are we here? We also had quite a number of similar entries like that. I would highlight a few of them, but it's a very, and I'm noticing from other presentations we've seen through these Crafted to Win sessions, that it's a very common pitfall that we are all seeing. It's strong work, but as long as it's entered into the wrong category, it cannot be celebrated the way it should. One of the big things we also noticed, at least in the past couple of years, was the non-English work without translations. That always caused a problem, because the truth is, we're a group of jury members who are all busy doing other things. An entry that we are reviewing that does not give us everything we need to understand it and take that decision then really gets overlooked. There are some instances where out of maybe 7 jury members, 3 may go ahead and go searching and try and translate or maybe understand. And then there are others who just won't. And the crazy thing is, most of the time, if it's from your agency as a jury member, you need to abstain from voting. So if you can't be part of it also, then there's no voice really to even help us understand it. And so we need to always make sure that we have transcriptions of work that is not English. Also, one of the common pitfalls, specifically within heritage category, is not understanding the difference between the outdoors, where we're looking at experiential, we're looking at ambient. Ambient is the physical things that you've created, the literal 3D physical, tangible items or elements that have been created for the brand, whereas experiential are experiences. Sometimes there are ambient things that have experiences within them, like the Mattel situation. Then there are also other ambient ones that don't. And we need to get clear on those differences, especially within our category. I think the absence of case films doesn't do anyone justice, especially when it comes to the heritage category. I think that being able to illustrate and make this short film about your work and the creative concept behind it would always help. But also even what is in the case film. So without a case film or a weak case film, you're kind of in that same balance where you're now at the mercy of juries to try and make sense of the creative you've done. It's the same thing for the case boards. And I think that, in terms of agencies in Africa, we also need to get used to learning to create these films and these case boards, because if we ever want to win awards, even before, beyond Africa, those are the standard. It's something you need. I had the honor of being a shortlisting juror for Cannes this year. And the case films are a non-negotiable, no matter the kind of entry. And you get creative with them. They don't always require you to actually go move a camera for that, but how they are presented also helps in terms of inching the judge's decision making. I think that when we come to heritage, it's something Adebayo and I talked about. And Adebayo, I'll throw it back to you when I'm done so that you say something on that, because we've talked about this, where this is that one category that digital engagement results will not inch you forward. It's good to know the results, but the fact that you have great or high digital engagement results doesn't mean your idea was great. In heritage, the creativity leads, right? The idea is what leads us. So oftentimes we've seen an entry that is boasting of 2 million impressions, 1 million reach, all these different numbers, but the quality of the creative is not great. And knowing very well that they are the kinds of budget that exist to push the media value up for campaigns, it doesn't allow us to overlook weak creative. So when heritage is concerned, we need to really be focused on the quality of creative work more than just the numbers that we're looking at digitally. Adebayo, do you want to jump in on that?
Absolutely. Thank you. I mean, looking through some of the things we saw last year, so I'll just pick an example, e.g., the malaria one you shared not long ago, the one with David Beckham. The idea wasn't around David Beckham. Yeah, you could easily take out David Beckham from the campaign and it will still be very impactful. So David Beckham just gave it more eyeballs. So the fact that once you give Meta money, you're definitely going to get a lot of eyeballs, and then you can even dictate the regions you want to get those eyeballs. So of course, this is one. And to be honest, I feel like a lot of agencies forget that this is one category that it feels like you're actually, you need to convince the jury. So it's like creating an ad to convince the entire jury that all of the things you've put in should be considered above everyone else. So it's a campaign, so to speak, and you have to create time to put all of these things together. Okay. So I just thought to chip that in.
Yeah, great. Okay, thank you. So, like I said, the currency and focus here is creativity, is the idea, not just the craft. But I must add that as soon as we are done assessing that creativity, the question is how well was it executed? There are some times where we've seen some really good creatives, but they haven't quite been executed. So even in terms of the word execute, I'll say they haven't been expressed as creatively as the idea. And that typically also, creates a gap between you and your gold. I think in one of the campaigns shown by the jury that talked about good and effectiveness, there was this one about the reporting of domestic violence, right? Now, in that category, it's definitely strong. But I remember when we were looking at it in heritage, it didn't do that great. Why? Because from a design perspective, from a print perspective, it wasn't new. This is something we keep seeing. We've seen it before. We could understand that an art director may have felt he had to dig into his bag well to create that mouthless look on the models. That's a craft conversation. It's not a heritage conversation. So, for example, that ad would have done much better in the craft category than in the heritage. Now, lengthy entry descriptors which lack relevant information are basically zero. I think as juries, we've sat in jury conversations and it's like everyone can complain about a particular one. Yeah, I saw it, I read it, but there was so much they said, but I still wasn't getting it. So sometimes it's best to hold yourself to brevity, and that brevity will force you to actually tell us what's necessary. So let me give you one of the examples. For me, it was a bit of a heartbreaker. I think the good and effective jury talk about this project, the Clean Water Project, the Hewa Safi project. This was such a great idea. I think it was very creative. I think there was a disruptive level to it. I think it was game changing. Their case image was great. Case film was great. They organized their presentation well. But unfortunately, there was a weak choice in category. They entered this as billboard and poster categories as outdoor, right? So it's outdoor, right? But they entered it into the wrong version of outdoor. This had every chance of being a gold in the ambient category, okay? But they entered it in as billboard and poster. In that category, we are looking at your creative direction. We are looking at creativity in your work presentation of the idea. But where this idea really scores gold is in the fact that you've taken what it used to be or should be a regular billboard and turned it into this literal pollution filter. And that is definitely a gold as an ambient installation. But unfortunately, it wasn't entered into ambient. I think that as jury members, we debated, we went back and forth and, sort of handed them a consolation bronze. But in the right category, this work in terms of heritage was supposed to be a gold. If it had been entered into ambient, it was definitely measuring up there. Yes, it had a sense of scale, maybe not as many spread out in town, but as an idea, as a strong idea, as a really cool way of thinking about outdoor installations and also impactful work. It scored really high on those things, but unfortunately, there was a weak choice of subcategory, and that didn't get them the gold there. I think that beyond that, Adebayo, do you want to jump in on this one as well?
Okay, I mean, we already talked about how, recall you mentioned how the idea, the creativity leads when it comes to this category. So we pulled this up because looking at the all of the things they put up surpassed all of this easily. It had nothing to do with the brilliance of the idea. So it was just a very basic idea. However, I mean, again, if you pay meta, you can do way more than you thought you could do. So you see surpass overall this 6.7 completed in views and planned. But again, the pivot of the entire thing, which is the creativity, it was flat. It was flat. So in this particular category, your idea leads. So I mean, global brands are moving from trying to engage the entire world. If it's 100 people and it's impactful, then it's good advertising. The concept is good. But here, the concept, we've seen it before over and over again. It wasn't done differently. Just all of these KPIs. And then you believe, oh, you deserve an award. In heritage, no place. Okay.
Great. Okay, so we're gonna scoot quickly to what just a few key things when you are completing the entry form, because again, Namdi and team, the pitcher team, do such a great job in empowering you to make the right kind of entries. They send you all this information. I saw this time around there's a whole book on how to enter the pitches. So knowing that that exists, these are the few reminders that we will add. We're saying that if you really want to do the right thing, if you really want your entries to be well crafted, we are proposing that you assign an entries committee as an agency so that they have the focus of studying categories and criteria and how things should be packaged. And they are the ones who will be in charge of uploading them. Because very often we realize that sometimes it's the last minute, it's obviously the same person who's entering most of it. You can see the similarities in how the wording is going. The same mistakes keep appearing throughout. Sometimes there's a rush, the lack of a case film, or the very bland way that a case image has been done. All those things show you that there's no dedication to making this entry. But the good thing is that making your picture entry well, getting the right decision makers and the right creatives involved in the process gives you a really good entry, really good assets to enter. And once those are good, it also positions you to be able to enter other global awards, because this is regional, right? And you are able to you've already prepped yourself, you already have what you need for the next level. So consider creating an entries committee every time it's time to enter awards. And try to do them ahead of time. Let this committee be in charge of the process so that they have focus on it and get it done. I mean, log it into your timesheets if you have to, but it's that important, because what's the point of paying the money, making the entry, but it's not done well, so you can't get the recognition for the work. I think that being brief but informative is also very important. Let's focus on facts and figures in terms of the details that you will give. I think that when we talk about facts and figures, it's not, like I said, we don't really, we're not obsessed about reach and all these digital metrics, but also in terms of what it took to put this together. So you take something like the Mattel entry for the outdoor ambience. They gave us all this information, what the building was made of, because you have these questions, right? How long can this structure stand? How well was it built? Is it by experts? Who came together to make it happen? All these things help in terms of when you're looking at the scale of an ambient conversation. And I think that a lot of the information they gave us there helped. Also, let's start the process early to give yourself enough time. It's very clear when an entry is made last minute. I know the pitcher team do well. They give you early bird offers and all of that. They also extend the time continuously. But I would suggest that we try not to be as late birds all the time. Let's try and process our stuff early, because it gives you time to package it well. And one of the most important thing is, I think we should get better at judging our work before we enter it. Maybe you need to get an external voice to look at the work again, because sometimes as creatives, when we do this work, we're very proud of it. We saw it happen. We know what it took for it to come to fruition. Those are personal feelings we have about our work. When it gets to the jury level, no jury is thinking about how the team stayed up late. No jury is thinking about how the team struggled to get approval. No jury is thinking about the hoops you went through to get this campaign approved by client. What we're looking at is this good enough? When people think about Africa and how creative Africa is this work we are proud of saying this is the standard of creativity in Africa? And these questions are very important. And I think if we'll ask them to ourselves as agencies, we probably won't go, entering some of the stuff that we think work. I think that when we don't have enough to enter, that should inspire us to do stronger work rather than forced to enter 10 different things, but knowing very well that 5 of them do not make the cut. They are very quickly dismissed on the jury side, especially when you have a year that is very competitive. We could actually start by shortlisting you, but by the time we see the 10 other entries in the same category, we realize that it's actually unfair to them to give you a shortlist knowing that this is the standard they are bringing. So let's be the best judge of our work even before we bring it. And I think for me, award-winning work, it's award-winning before you bring it into the awards, really. You are just bringing it into the award to validate that it's award-winning work. So if you don't think it is, chances are it's not. So that's it from us. Adebayo, would you want to add anything else? Otherwise, we could open for questions if there's time.
Yeah, I was just a few things. Something you mentioned, because when it comes to regional awards, global awards, I feel like sometimes agencies judge the awards based on the standard, maybe the standard of creativity in that country or in that region. So, I mean, it's a global village and the judges are exposed. The jury, they are exposed. They will not be judging your work based on, oh, this is the level of advertising or creativity in Nigeria. So it's very important that you judge your work, not per the region you are in, but per what is happening within the global space. That way, you already know if you're wasting money or, okay, you stand a very good chance at winning this thing. Okay. I think when I joined the earlier call, I can remember who was speaking, because sometimes again, agencies do not tell themselves the truth, and maybe it's the clients. Some ads are just good to make money and lay in there. Thinking maybe because it made you a lot of money, oh, let's put it in for awards. I mean, on this particular stage, it will not work. So again, I wrote a few things down that I would just like to chip in there while you were talking, so I didn't want to interrupt you. Now, you mentioned something about the power of integration, and it's very powerful because you can have a film and it wins silver, okay? And by the time you bring the radio to it and the print, then it becomes amazing because again, you don't know the works you'll be going against in a particular year. Okay, so it's important that, sorry, excuse me. It's important that agencies almost create, no, this is not for this. I just feel like sometimes agencies they adapt instead of creating platforms. So when you bring stuff like this here, sorry, work. Sorry, I apologize. I might lose my job for this. But so that's it pretty much. I think you've covered everything.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right, thanks, Adebayo. So that's it from us from the heritage side. I guess fitting category to close the session.